The Galactic Empire's dominions stretched across the stars, a sprawling tapestry of conquered worlds and subjugated species. Its fleets were vast, its technology unmatched, and its will unyielding. For centuries, the Empire had crushed rebellion after rebellion, its leaders ruling with an iron fist and a cold, calculated cruelty. To the Empire, strength was the only virtue, and weakness was a sin punishable by annihilation. Among the countless species they had enslaved, humanity was considered the weakest, a fragile, emotional race that clung to hope even in the face of certain doom. The Empire had no use for hope. They believed only in power. On the fringes of the galaxy, in the ruins of a once thriving human colony, a young girl crouched in the shadows of a crumbling building. Her name was Alara, though she hadn't spoken it aloud in years. Names were dangerous. Names could be used against you. She was 16, though she looked younger, her frame slight and her face gaunt from years of malnutrition and fear. Her dark hair was matted, her clothes little more than rags, but her eyes burned with a fierce, unyielding light. She had survived where others had not, scavenging for food, evading imperial patrols, and clinging to the faint hope that one day, somehow, humanity would rise again. Alara's colony had fallen when she was just a child. She remembered the screams, the acrid smell of burning flesh, and the cold, mechanical precision of the Empire's soldiers as they slaughtered everyone in their path. She had hidden in the ruins, watching as her parents were dragged away, their faces etched with terror. She had never seen them again. Since then, she had wandered from one ruined world to another, always one step ahead of the Empire, always alone. But now her luck had run out. The sound of boots crunching on broken glass snapped her out of her thoughts. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The patrol was close, too close. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding in her chest. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the low hum of energy weapons. She knew she couldn't outrun them. Her only chance was to stay hidden and pray they passed her by. But the Empire's soldiers were thorough. They swept through the ruins with methodical precision, their scanners probing every shadow, every crevice. It wasn't long before one of them spotted her. "Over here!" a voice barked, harsh and mechanical through the helmet's modulator. Alara's blood turned to ice as the soldiers converged on her position. She bolted, her legs pumping as she darted through the ruins, but it was no use. A stun bolt struck her in the back, and she crumpled to the ground, her body convulsing as darkness closed in. When she awoke, she was in a cell. The walls were cold and metallic, the air thick with the stench of sweat and fear. Her wrists were shackled, the chains bolted to the floor. She tugged at them instinctively, but they didn't budge. Across the room, a door slid open, and two soldiers entered, their armor gleaming under the harsh light. Between them stood a tall, imposing figure clad in the black uniform of an imperial interrogator. His face was sharp and angular, his eyes cold and calculating. He studied her for a moment, his lips curling into a faint, cruel smile. "So," he said, his voice smooth and dripping with malice, "you're the little rat they've been chasing. I must admit I expected more." He circled her slowly, his boots clicking against the floor. "Do you know why you're here?" Alara said nothing. She clenched her jaw, her eyes fixed on the floor. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear. The interrogator chuckled. "Stubborn. I like that. It makes breaking you so much more enjoyable." He stopped in front of her, crouching down to meet her gaze. "You see, we've heard rumors. Rumors of a human resistance, hiding in the shadows, plotting against the Empire. And we believe you know where they are." Alara's heart skipped a beat. She had heard the rumors too, whispered among the refugees and scavengers. But she had never believed them. Hope was a dangerous thing, and she had learned long ago not to trust it. "I don't know anything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The interrogator's smile widened. "Oh, I think you do, and you're going to tell me, one way or another." He straightened, nodding to the soldiers. "Prepare her." The next few hours were a blur of pain and terror. The interrogator used every tool at his disposal: electric shocks, sensory deprivation, and psychological manipulation. He played on her fears, her memories, her deepest insecurities. But through it all, Elara refused to break. She screamed, she cried, but she never gave him what he wanted. She couldn't. Even if she had known where the resistance was, she would have died before betraying them. Finally, the interrogator stepped back, his expression one of frustration and grudging respect. "You're stronger than you look," he admitted. "But strength alone won't save you." He turned to the soldiers. "Finish her." Alara's vision blurred as the soldiers approached, their weapons raised. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the end. But instead of the sharp pain of a blaster bolt, she felt a cold, numbing sensation spreading through her body. Her limbs grew heavy, her thoughts sluggish. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was the interrogator's cold, satisfied smile. When the soldiers dragged her lifeless body from the cell, they left it in a cold, unmarked chamber, a forgotten casualty of the Empire's endless war. But as the door slid shut and the lights dimmed, something stirred in the darkness. A faint, almost imperceptible glow began to emanate from Alara's body, growing brighter with each passing second. The Empire had thought her weak, but they were wrong. And soon they would learn just how wrong they were. The cold, sterile chamber where Alara's body had been discarded was silent, save for the faint hum of the facility's power grid. The Empire soldiers had left her there without a second thought, another nameless casualty in their endless campaign of domination. But as the minutes ticked by, something extraordinary began to happen. A faint, golden light flickered to life within her chest, pulsing like a heartbeat. It spread through her veins, illuminating her skin from within, and the wounds that had been inflicted upon her began to knit themselves together. Bones realigned, bruises faded, and the burns from the interrogator's tools vanished as though they had never existed. Alara's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly radiance. She gasped, her body arching as life surged back into her. For a moment, she was disoriented, her mind struggling to reconcile the memory of death with the reality of her resurrection. But as the light within her dimmed, clarity returned. She remembered the pain, the interrogator's cruel smile, and the cold finality of her last breath. And now she was alive. Not just alive, changed. She sat up slowly, her movements fluid and deliberate. The chains that had bound her lay broken on the floor, the metal twisted and warped as though it had been melted. She stared at her hands, flexing her fingers, and felt a surge of power coursing through her. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a raw, untamed energy that seemed to respond to her thoughts. She clenched her fist, and a crackling aura of golden light enveloped it. She didn't understand what had happened to her, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Empire would pay. The door to the chamber slid open, and two soldiers entered, their weapons drawn. They froze when they saw her, their expressions a mixture of shock and fear. "Impossible," one of them muttered, his voice trembling. She was dead. Alara rose to her feet, her movements calm and unhurried. The soldiers raised their weapons, but before they could fire, she was upon them. Her speed was inhuman, a blur of motion that left them no time to react. She disarmed the first soldier with a single, precise strike, her hand glowing as it shattered the weapon's casing. The second soldier fired, but the energy bolt dissipated harmlessly against the golden aura that surrounded her. She turned to him, her eyes blazing, and with a flick of her wrist, sent him crashing into the wall. He slumped to the floor, unconscious. Alara stepped over their fallen forms and into the corridor beyond. The facility was vast, a labyrinth of sterile hallways and heavy doors, but she moved with purpose. She could feel the presence of the Empire's soldiers, their fear and confusion like a faint hum in the back of her mind. She didn't know how far her newfound abilities extended, but she was determined to find out. The first wave of reinforcements arrived within minutes. A squad of heavily armed soldiers, their armor gleaming under the harsh lights, converged on her position. They opened fire without hesitation, energy bolts filling the air. Alara raised her hand, and a shimmering barrier of light appeared before her, deflecting the shots with ease. She stepped forward, the barrier moving with her, and the soldiers fell back, their confidence wavering. One of them, braver or perhaps more foolish than the rest, charged at her with a vibroblade. She caught his wrist mid-swing, her grip like iron, and with a twist of her hand, snapped the blade in two. She released him, and he stumbled back, clutching his broken weapon. "You should have left me dead," she said, her voice calm but laced with menace. The soldiers hesitated, their weapons trembling in their hands. Then, with a burst of speed, she was among them. She moved like a force of nature, her every strike precise and devastating. Bones cracked, armor crumpled, and within moments, the squad lay defeated. The facility's alarms blared, red lights flashing as the Empire scrambled to contain the threat. Alara moved deeper into the complex, her path marked by the wreckage of drones, turrets, and soldiers who had tried, and failed, to stop her. She didn't know where she was going, but she trusted her instincts to guide her. Along the way, she encountered other prisoners, their faces gaunt and their eyes hollow. She freed them without hesitation, shattering locks and tearing doors from their hinges. Some fled, while others joined her, emboldened by her defiance. As she neared the heart of the facility, the resistance grew more intense. Elite soldiers, clad in advanced armor and wielding powerful weapons, barred her path. They fought with discipline and coordination, their tactics designed to overwhelm even the most formidable opponents. But Alara was no ordinary opponent. She met their attacks head-on, her golden aura flaring as she absorbed their blows and countered with devastating force. She moved with a grace and precision that seemed almost supernatural, her every action calculated to maximize destruction. One of the elites, a towering figure with a plasma cannon, managed to land a direct hit. The blast sent her skidding back, her aura flickering under the strain. For a moment, it seemed as though she might falter. But then she straightened, her eyes blazing with renewed intensity. She raised her hand, and a beam of golden light erupted from her palm, striking the elite and reducing his armor to molten slag. He fell, and the others hesitated, their confidence shattered. Alara pressed her advantage, her movements a blur of light and motion. Within moments, the elites lay defeated, their weapons scattered and their armor broken. She stepped over their fallen forms and into the facility's control room. The technicians and officers inside froze, their faces pale with fear. She ignored them, her attention focused on the massive viewscreen that dominated the far wall. It displayed a map of the galaxy, the Empire's territories marked in red. She stared at it for a moment, her expression unreadable, then turned to the nearest console. With a touch, she activated the facility's communication array. Her voice, calm and unwavering, echoed through the speakers. "People of the galaxy," she began. "My name is Alara. I was once a prisoner of the Empire, tortured and left for dead. But I have returned, and I will not rest until the Empire's tyranny is ended. To those who have suffered under their rule, know this, you are not alone. Rise up, fight back. Together, we will tear down their empire and build a future where freedom reigns." The room fell silent, the technicians and officers staring at her in stunned disbelief. Then, one by one, they began to kneel, their heads bowed in submission. Alara turned away, her gaze returning to the viewscreen. The galaxy was vast, and the Empire's reach was long. But she was no longer afraid. She had faced death and returned, stronger than ever. And now she would bring the Empire to its knees. The galaxy was aflame. Alara's message had spread like wildfire, igniting rebellions on 100 worlds. Species long oppressed by the Empire's tyranny rose up, their hope rekindled by the tale of the human girl who had defied death itself. The Empire, once an unshakable monolith, now found itself besieged on all fronts. Fleets that had once enforced its will were stretched thin, their commanders scrambling to contain the chaos. And at the heart of it all was Alara, a beacon of defiance and a symbol of the Empire's unraveling. She moved from world to world, her presence alone enough to turn the tide of battle. Her golden aura became a rallying cry, a sign that the Empire's reign of terror was nearing its end. On the jungle planet of Valor, she led a ragtag army of rebels against an Imperial garrison, her powers carving a path through their defenses. On the desert moon of Carthes, she faced down a battalion of war machines, her light reducing their armored hulls to molten slag. And on the icy plains of Nox Prime, she stood alone against an entire legion of elite soldiers, her every movement a testament to the strength of the human spirit. But as her victories mounted, so too did the toll on her body and mind. The power that had resurrected her was not infinite. Each battle drained her, the golden light within her dimming with every use. She could feel it, the strain, the weariness that no amount of rest could fully alleviate. Yet she pressed on, driven by a singular purpose, to see the Empire fall. Her crusade brought her to the heart of the Empire's power, the sprawling fortress world of Imperius Prime. It was here that the Emperor himself resided, surrounded by his most loyal followers and protected by the mightiest defenses in the galaxy. The fortress was a labyrinth of towering spires and impenetrable walls, its every inch bristling with weapons and soldiers. To attack it was suicide, but Alara had no intention of attacking. She intended to end it. The journey to Imperius Prime was fraught with danger. The Empire had thrown everything it had left at her, from fleets of warships to assassins cloaked in shadow. But none could stop her. She fought her way through their forces, her resolve unshakable. When she finally reached the fortress, she stood before its gates, her aura blazing like a star. The soldiers stationed there hesitated, their weapons trembling in their hands. They had heard the stories, seen the footage of her battles. They knew what she was capable of. Alara raised her hand, and the gates exploded inward, their massive hinges torn apart by her power. She stepped through the wreckage, her eyes fixed on the towering spire at the center of the fortress. The Emperor was there. She could feel his presence, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to pulse in time with her own heartbeat. The soldiers who tried to stop her fell before they could even raise their weapons, their bodies tossed aside like ragdolls. She moved with purpose, her every step bringing her closer to her goal. The final barrier was the Emperor's personal guard, a cadre of elite warriors clad in armor forged from the rarest materials in the galaxy. They were the best the Empire had to offer, their skills honed through decades of battle. They met her in the throne room, their weapons drawn and their expressions grim. The Emperor himself sat on his throne, his face a mask of cold indifference. He watched as his guards advanced, confident in their ability to protect him. Alara didn't waste words. She charged, her aura flaring as she met the guards head-on. The battle was fierce, the throne room echoing with the clash of steel and the crackle of energy. The guards fought with skill and precision, their attacks coordinated and relentless. But Alara was faster, stronger, her every movement a blur of light and motion. She disarmed one guard with a flick of her wrist, shattered another's armor with a single strike, and sent a third crashing into the wall with a burst of golden energy. But the fight took its toll. Her aura flickered, the light within her dimming as she pushed herself to the limit. The guards sensed her weakening and pressed their advantage, their attacks growing more desperate. One of them managed to land a blow, his blade slicing through her shoulder. She cried out, the pain sharp and immediate, but she didn't falter. She retaliated with a burst of energy that sent him flying, his armor smoking and his weapon shattered. Finally, only one guard remained. He was the captain of the Emperor's guard, a towering figure with a scarred face and eyes that burned with determination. He raised his weapon, a massive warhammer crackling with energy, and charged at her. Alara met him head-on, her aura flaring as she caught the hammer mid-swing. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through the room, but she held firm. With a roar, she twisted the hammer from his grasp and drove her fist into his chest. The golden light surged, and he was thrown back, his armor crumpling under the force of the blow. The throne room fell silent, the only sound the faint hum of Alara's aura. She turned to the emperor, her eyes blazing with fury. He rose from his throne, his expression unreadable. "You've come far, little human," he said, his voice cold and mocking. "But you cannot win. The empire is eternal." Alara didn't respond. She raised her hand, and a beam of golden light erupted from her palm, striking the emperor square in the chest. He staggered back, his armor smoking, but he didn't fall. He laughed, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "You think you can kill me?" he sneered. "I am the Empire, and the Empire cannot be destroyed." Alara's vision blurred, her strength fading. She could feel the light within her flickering, on the verge of extinguishing. But she refused to give up. She summoned the last of her power, her aura blazing brighter than ever. With a final, desperate effort, she unleashed a wave of energy that engulfed the throne room. The emperor's laughter turned to a scream as the light consumed him, his form disintegrating into nothingness. The fortress shook, its foundations crumbling under the force of the blast. Alara fell to her knees, her body spent. She could feel the life draining from her, the golden light fading as the last of her strength left her. But as the darkness closed in, she smiled. The empire was finished. The galaxy was free.